capacity to generate produce power for the whole country.
Making sense of it all so that you can get a clearer picture.
I've collected 500 billion, and I can only show you borehole.
It's politics.
For me, it is what I call Iberberism. I beg your pardon. Go and search for it, my friend.
It's current affairs.
4 years course, metamorphosing into 6 years.
And news that affects you.
What an academic academic in their leadership rococo, leadership brababare.
It's all the serious stuff,
but with a light-hearted twist.
I'm Sandra Ezekwesili.
And I'm Aghogho.
Join us 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. every weekday.
Right here.
On Hard Facts. On Hard Facts.
Hello, Lagos. Good afternoon. I am Sandra Ezekwesili, and these are your hard facts. Happy International Men's Day to all the men who are listening to me right now. If you are a man, you're a boy, and you're listening to me, happy International Men's Day to you. The theme for this year's Men's Day is making a difference for men and boys. And the focus is on promoting the need to value men and boys and to help people make practical improvements in men and boys' health and well-being. So to all the men and all the boys listening to me right now, I want you to know that the world should value you, should see what you need, should see that you have health, and should also attend to all of your mental needs. Special shout out to the men of Hard Facts, Aghogho, Chukwudi, and everybody behind the scenes. Tunde Pratt, I know you're listening. Happy International Men's Day to you. Darlington, happy International Men's Day to you. And Archie, and who are all the regular men who call me? Austin, two Austins who call me. There's Vincent from Apapa as well. If I don't remember your name, don't worry. If you're a man, as soon as you call into the show, I'm going to wish you a personal happy International Men's Day. I'm not a man, but it's still my day because I'm the president of Hard Facts, and I'm here every weekday to give you the best insights into today's most important topics. Happy International Men's Day to the man who gave me the nickname president of Hard Facts, Christopher Insurulere. I bring you all these hard facts. I bring them to you, break them down, give you the facts, and you can form an informed opinion. If you missed any of last week's shows, you can still catch them online. Go to Facebook, go to Twitter, go to YouTube, Nigeria Info FM. I have a great show for you today. We're starting with the big three. It's also World Toilet Day, so we'll have a conversation about that. The Chief Medical Director of LUTH says Nigerians don't need to travel abroad for treatment. And the Senate moves to include e-voting before next election. So it sounds like the things we cried about, our representatives are about to listen to. On Community U Report today, Chukwudi Ezekwesili will be talking about International Men's Day and how it affects you as members of a community that has men, and the men, of course, who are in the different communities right here in Lagos, Nigeria. On the Big Hard Fact, we're taking a look at the border closure and the ban or on sale of petrol within 20 kilometers of the border. I'm going to have a special guest to discuss all of that with you. He is Lucky Animwero, a former member of the Presidential Task Force to reform the Customs Service. And I'll hand you over to Rufai Useni for conversations with Rufai. I still have that cold that I picked up from Port Harcourt, where I went to host the TEDx Port Harcourt event. So I'm trying to avoid everybody in the office so I don't give them the cold. I'm sorry, Deep Boy, you probably just got the cold as well because he just handed me the tablet. As usual, throughout the show, we're bringing you the latest updates from the world of news, sports, and entertainment. But let's get started with the big three.
This is the Big Three.
The Big Three on Hard Facts
on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
You know what to expect on the Big Three, stories that everyone is talking about right now. Why do we not have more toilets for Nigerians? Is medical care in Nigeria good enough? Is electronic voting the answer to Nigeria's electoral problems? Let's get into these stories, shall we? Today is World Toilet Day. It's a day set aside by the UN to highlight the importance of sanitation in general and plumbing-based toilet systems in particular. According to data from the United Nations, 673 million people worldwide practice open defecation. And 47 million of them are right here in Nigeria. As you know, this has made us the world's leading country in open defecation. Now, I want us to take a look at those numbers for a moment, shall we? I'm a numbers girl, sometimes. 673 million people worldwide. That's a bit less than 10% of the world's population that defecates out in the open. Now, Nigeria's number is 47 million. With the population estimated at 200 million, that's a bit less than 1 in 4 people. A bit less than 25%. So while the global rate is 10%, the Nigerian rate is 25%. That's 2.5 times the global rate. That means that a Nigerian is 2.5 times more likely than a non-Nigerian to be defecating outside. That shows how badly we're doing compared to the rest of the world. And one of the reasons why open defecation is so rampant here is that most Nigerians do not realize how much of a problem it is, both private citizens and government officials. So, for example, I lived in Rivers State for years. Between 1997 and 2018, I lived in Rivers State. And most of the local government areas have riverine communities. And you know what the local government councils would do when they wanted to build public toilets? They would build toilets that emptied into the river. And it was seen as perfectly normal. After all, this was how the ancestors were also doing. So the water supply is getting infected by the human waste because even government officials are not educated about sanitation. Apart from defecating outside or defecating in rivers, the United Nations also advises against toilets being shared by different households. So you know how we build face me, I face you apartments where different apartments share a toilet and a bathroom. The UN, the United Nations, is saying this is wrong. And that as a society, we have to do more to ensure that every individual household has exclusive access to its own toilets. This is to help prevent the spread of various diseases. So I want to ask you, do you think your local and your state government has done enough to ensure that everybody has a toilet? Maybe you're not Lagosian. Maybe you're from Kogi State, where they just had elections. Maybe you're from Bayelsa. Maybe you're from Niger. Maybe you're from Kebbi. Maybe you're from Enugu. Do you think your local and state government has done enough to ensure that you have a toilet, that everybody has a toilet? Do you think that as a society we are sensitized enough about the dangers of open defecation and the proper way to handle human waste? The United Nations says that sanitation is a human right. Do you believe Nigerians treat sanitation like it's their right? Are Nigerians demanding the best from their governments, from their landlords, from themselves when it comes to sanitation and toilets? 01277 0993, 01277 1993, 01277 2993, and 01277 3993. When you call me, if you're male, I'm going to wish you a happy International Men's Day because it's International Men's Day. We've got Moses up first. You can also send us a WhatsApp message. WhatsApp is 080 959 75805. 080 959 75805. Moses, that wasn't Moses. This is Victor. Hello, Victor.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Happy International Men's Day.
Yeah.
Hello.
I can hear you. I said I accept that, but I'm still a youth.
Hello. Oh, unfortunately, every time Victor calls, his line isn't very clear. All right, let's talk to Pyrus. Pyrus is in Lekki. Hello, Pyrus.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Happy International Men's Day.
Thank you. Yes, Sandra. They said that the open education in Nigeria is 47 million. How did they know? Who counted it?
That's a good question.
How did they know?
Well, I
They
mean,
are not saying that 1 in every 4 Nigerians. That's not true now.
are you sure that's not true?
It's not true. 1 in every 4 Nigerians is not true.
Have
now.
you defecated in the open before? Ever
Myself?
in your life?
Yeah, maybe back in the day.
See, so are you not 1 in every 4?
That's not true now.
Wait, let me ask the next person that will call me now if they've ever defecated in the open before. Thanks for calling me. Hello, Daniel.
Hello.
Happy International Men's Day.
Thank you.
Have you ever defecated in the open?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so you're not one of the 4.
No, I'm not. But I have witnessed such cases, especially around Aghogho, which is where I live.
Okay.
So, but the thing is that there are little public toilets in the country, in Lagos and in Nigeria as a whole, which is what promotes open defecation. So I think the government should do more about creating public toilets. And then as for households that shares their toilets, well, that is inevitable for now, considering the level of poverty. People will still keep living in face me and manage the toilet.
All right, Daniel. Thanks for calling me. You see, what I'm doing right now is a survey of sorts, and that's how they get those numbers for Daniel, who was calling me earlier. That's how it's done. Was it Daniel? I forget. The person who was asking me how did they get that number. Those surveys are usually done by the National Bureau of Statistics and the UN, and it's similar to what I'm doing right now with you. I'm asking everyone, have you ever defecated in the open? Let me ask the next caller. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, thanks for calling. What's your name?
Yeah, it's Victor. Victor from Aghogho.
Victor, finally, your line is clear. Have you ever defecated in the open, Victor?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 2 out of 3 of the people who have called me today.
No. But I'm not in support of that because, in times of where you are pressed now, you don't have public toilets.
But if there were public, so that means that the government isn't doing enough to ensure that there's enough toilets.
Yes, in my own area, most especially, the public toilets are so bad that you cannot even use them because in case you use them, you might contract toilet disease. So I think the government are not doing enough at all. And they need to improve on that because you can't use a situation where you find yourself in a public area or you went to a place that is far from your house and you're pressed and you cannot get public toilet. So it's better the government improves that because it's a key factor. And in the cases of passing the feces to the rivers, it's not advisable. It's not good at all. And these waters are being used as a source of maybe people tap water from there.
Victor, thanks for calling me. So Victor said something very interesting when he called, and I said Happy International Men's Day. He said, I'm still a youth, I'm not a man. Victor's probably more than 29 years old. I'll find out the next time Victor calls us. We'll move on to our second story. You're listening to Hard Facts. This is the Big Three.
Stay right here on the Big Three on 99.3 Cherry Info. is the Big Three
The Big Three on Hard Facts.
on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
And today on the Big Three, it's World Toilet Day. And I'm asking if you think the state government has done enough to ensure that everybody has a toilet. Our second story, the chief medical director of LUTH says Nigerians don't need to travel abroad for treatment. The medical director of the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Professor Chris Bode, has said that Nigerians should come to LUTH for treatment instead of going abroad. The CMD said LUTH is equipped to world standards and rivals hospitals both at home and in foreign countries. Bode said there was therefore no need for Nigerians to leave the country in the name of medical treatment. Now, we've been trying to get in contact with Professor Bode. I would really love to sit down with him and discuss this particular issue. He talked about the facilities that LUTH has and how they are world standard. So when we take calls, I want you to let me know if you visited LUTH recently or if you were admitted there yourself. Let me know how the facilities were. But let's say for now that LUTH's facilities were indeed world class. Some would argue that LUTH cannot provide care for every Nigerian. LUTH has a limit. So definitely those Nigerians that LUTH doesn't have the space to see must go to other hospitals in Nigeria. Okay, good. Now, how many of those hospitals are at the world standard that LUTH is claiming to be? 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, even 200? Huh? Even 200 will not be enough to take care of the health needs of all Nigerians. So what happens if Nigerians who can go abroad stop going abroad? Simple. They will fill up all the quality hospitals, meaning that those who could afford those hospitals before but couldn't go abroad now have to use worse hospitals. And those who were using those worse hospitals before have to use even worse ones. And on and on and on and on. Meanwhile, we're watching more and more doctors leaving Nigeria. And not just doctors, we're watching nurses, radiology technicians, every specialist job in the medical field. They're leaving for many reasons, but a big reason is the lack of resources for them to do a quality job here. So some observers would say, if the doctors are leaving, why should the patients stay? I want to know what you think. First, like I asked before, what is the quality of the teaching hospital right now? I have to say that I've been there myself. I was there when we were taking care of Ene. Remember Ene? I talked about her on the show. She was found at a jar bridge. She was naked. She was disoriented. She had dirt on her skin because she'd been out there for a while. Remember her? Remember her? She was at LUTH for a while and I went there to see her. But I want to hear your own confessions about LUTH. Oh, by the way, Ene was discharged from the hospital last week. If you go to my Twitter, you'll actually see a video of her thanking you for all the help that you offered and all the prayers and all the good wishes. So go to my Twitter right now and check it out. Twitter Ezekwesili. She made a video saying thank you. She's currently in Abuja and from there she'll be going home to her family in Benue. It's been 1 month. We found her 17th of October. Today is the 19th of November. So we were taking care of her for the month that she was in the hospital. And it's so great. So you should see how she looks now. Go to my Twitter and check it out. Ezekwesili on Twitter. Or just Google my Twitter, Ezekwesili. That's Sandra Ezekwesili Twitter. It will pop up. But back to LUTH. Do you agree that Nigerians should go to LUTH instead of going abroad? Do you believe that there's anything wrong in Nigerians going abroad for medical treatment? I'm talking about private citizens now, not the government officials. What's your view of the healthcare system here? How do you think it can be improved? Hello.
Hello?
Thanks for calling.
My name is Dan.
Daniel, welcome.
All right. Funny, the statement the LUTH man made is quite funny.
Okay.
I was privileged to hold half classes at LUTH for 3 years of my 4-year course in the University of Lagos.
Okay.
And I can tell you the LUTH hospital is a joke. The standard is suggesting it is.
Well, but have you been there recently?
Yes, I have been there.
Okay.
Constantly go there. And it is nowhere near the standard it's claiming it is.
Okay.
To suggest that Nigerians should not travel abroad to get proper treatment. And if LUTH, which is one of the best institutes, teaching hospitals in Nigeria, is not even at a proper standard, then which other hospitals should we now settle for? So I advise Nigerians, if you have the funds, go and get proper treatment.
Okay. Thanks for calling me, Daniel. Chooks is in Egbeda. Chooks, happy International Men's Day.
Thank you, Auntie Sandra.
Yes, go ahead.
Auntie Sandra, let me say this before I continue. I have a sister.
Okay.
She's blind now because of the mistake of a general hospital.
I'm sorry.
She was going to hospital and they said she was having malaria and typhoid.
Okay.
They were giving her injection. The thing got worse. We rushed her to the hospital and she went on coma. You know, there are people that go on coma, they should cover their eyes or they should give them spec. Do you know these people allowed her to go through the coma without anything? Her eyes was wide open.
Oh my God.
When she recovered herself, she got blind.
Oh my God.
Sandra, if I have any money and my son is feeling headache, I'm rushing him to Germany, to India. I can't. Whenever I'm sick, I always pray to God to heal me. I'm tired of the health system in Nigeria. The day my sister got blind, I was behind her. That particular day, no less than 2 people died or 3 in my front. That was in daytime. What daytime?
I'm sorry.
Sandra, somebody was rushing to hospital, a pregnant woman, because of money for that she had not deposited any money, blah, blah, blah. The doctors were arguing. I was even shouting on top of my voice with people in the hospital. Doctor, do the treatment, they will sort out the payment. Sandra, you know they were doing argument, the woman gave up to the ghost. Sandra, you tell me if I'm in the US and I fell sick and they rushed me to the hospital, that the first thing they will ask me is the money. They will take me before they ask me for money. But I'm their citizen. So all these things, when you talk about, there are a lot to talk about, and Sandra. So you are trying to tell me somebody is an emergency, nobody knows him, a pregnant woman for that matter, and they rush her to the hospital. So you cannot give her a treatment at that particular moment so that you hold her to, so that they come and bail her out from there. And you are looking for money, looking for passing through a coupon to know whether you get a contact to come and deposit before you start the treatment. And this woman gave up to the ghost with the pregnancy. It's just messed up in this country.
Chooks, thanks for calling to share your story with us. Very sad. Uche is in Surulere. Uche, happy Men's Day.
Am I supposed to say I wish you the same?
You can say it, I guess.
See, number one, before I talk about the looting, I'm angry that today that we are celebrating Men's Day, you decided to add celebration of Toilets Day. Come on.
I decided to add. Am I the UN?
When they do Mother's Day, we don't do that too.
Am I the UN? The UN put it there. I didn't put it
Please,
there.
Let's celebrate Men's Day today. Tomorrow, celebrate your toilet.
Okay, all right, let's go ahead.
God, don't make it special. Okay, fine. We are talking about LUTH. I've had experiences with LUTH, and all I can say is, if you can afford insurance, get your insurance. If you can afford to travel out of the country, do that, because even politicians, none of them uses this hospital. LUTH as a whole will tell you there is no oxygen, there is no bed space. Okay, I had when I was doing dentistry. I was doing some procedures because I was referred there. There was an emergency accident issue, and I was referred there. Do you know that, first of all, you have to start with year 1 student. They was have to be treating, and you could be like, what kind of attitude is? In short, the fact is, after that experience, I had to activate my insurance. and start using private hospitals. See, I was able to travel out of the country, and I'm like, after that experience, after I came back, I said, no, if you really want to kill yourself, go to Nigerian hospitals, or let me use the word LUTH. Go to LUTH. That's just the gospel truth.
All right.
Either use your insurance and go to good private hospitals. Yes, you might pay more, but LUTH, no way.
Okay, Uche, thanks for calling me. We've got Chooks in Aja. Hello, Chooks.
Hello, how are you?
Thanks for calling.
Yeah. In fact, anytime you mention LUTH, I always remember the demise of my dad about a year ago. I don't know, actually, between that last year and now, what magic that they will have done. Because my dad died as a result of a complication from a malaria infection, even though we took him there as a result of stroke of the brain. But because there was no bed, there was no hospital, there was no ward, we were treated to, they call it spillover ward. I don't know who is in charge of that ward. But in front of it, you see the gutter, you see the mosquito moving up and down. And my dad had malaria as a result of this. And somebody that is already in coma as a result of a brain stroke. And the rest is history. And we were paying on a daily basis. I think then it was about 10,000 or 15,000 per day. In fact, that's the LUTH for you.
Thank you so much for calling to share your story. I'm terribly sorry that happened to you, Chooks. Let's move on to our final story. But when you call, you can still talk about any of the stories on the Big Three today. Our final Big Three story, a bill is before the Senate to amend the Electoral Act of 2010. The bill seeks, among other provisions, to require a national electronic database for election results to be maintained by INEC, to mandate electronic transmission of election results from the polling unit to the national results database, to permit INEC to conduct electronic voting, and to reduce the charges political parties may charge for nomination forms. The bill is co-sponsored by Senate Deputy President Oboh Aghogho. So again, to require a national electronic database for election results to be maintained by INEC, to mandate electronic transmission of election results from the polling unit to the national results database, to permit INEC to conduct electronic voting, and to reduce the charges political parties may charge for nomination forms. That's what this bill to amend the Electoral Act of 2010 seeks to do, and it's co-sponsored by Senate Deputy President Oboh Aghogho. And joining us now to discuss the implications of this bill is an IT expert, a venture capital executive, and a political commentator, Chief Andy Oboh. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Sandra. Thank you.
Okay, can you speak up? We're struggling to hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
So the bill calls for a national database for election results and electronic transmission of results to that database. What is the goal, and do you think this measure will achieve that goal?
Well, essentially the goal there is to make sure that the results from the polling unit are immediately available nationally. So we don't have a situation like we have now where after voting at a polling unit, the results are taken, in paper form. They have to now be transported physically by helicopter, by car, or by boat from the polling unit to the collation center. you have to now wait for the results from all the polling units in that area to be gathered together, and then the results are counted from each one, added together. That's the collation. And then the new paper is generated, the result from the collation center. That one is now carried again by car, by boat, or by helicopter to the ward collation center. Then the same thing happens again at the LGA level, and the same thing happens again at state level. So you see, each step of the way, you have a lot of delay. And we've seen that delay causes two major problems. The first problem is, not knowing the result until days later. That's the first problem. The second problem is vulnerability. Because of those delays, a lot of room is given for results to be altered by various means, essentially either non-violently by INEC staff or violently by political thugs. And in that situation, sometimes you won't even realize it happened because we are not everywhere. We're not in all the thousands of polling units. So if the result can be transmitted electronically, instantly, from the polling unit to INEC headquarters in Abuja, the idea is that it eliminates some of these issues. And then, of course, we've also seen what happened in the Presidential Petition Tribunal with question of was there a server, was there not a server. So what this bill tries to do is to end that question once and for all by saying, look, there should be a server. INEC should keep the results on that server, and the data on that server should not be deleted until all the election tribunals and Supreme Court judgments have been given. So that's the goal there. Now, the question that you asked about whether it will work, well, it remains to be seen exactly how it will be implemented. Well, from the little I've seen of the bill gives a lot of latitude for how INEC will implement. So, for instance, it says transmit the data from the polling unit to the database. Now, it does not prescribe that the database should be instantly and perpetually accessible by anybody. So again, a question mark is there. What if somebody with access to the database changes the data in the database? Is it not still the same problem we had with collation? So like now, for instance, other countries that are doing things like this are using systems like the blockchain, because now if the database is blockchain-based, it is publicly accessible, publicly viewable always, so you will know if somebody's changing it or not. But you see, this has not been specified, so again, there's still room for exploitation.
The bill calls for the option of electronic voting. Why keep it just as an option? It provides the option. Why keep that as just an option instead of making it mandatory, like the electronic transmission of results?
Well, the difference, that's a very good question. There's been a difference in the way those two things have been discussed. Almost everybody is 100% on board for electronic transmission of results, except for the politicians themselves, some of them who, well, let me put it frankly, want to rig elections. But when it comes to the issue of electronic voting itself, there is serious debate and serious controversy, even among well-meaning people, even people who want the best for Nigeria, cannot decide if electronic voting is better or worse than manual voting. And so I think the Senate there, Senator Aghogho, is trying to strike a compromise by saying, okay, let's make it optional.
I see. Do you foresee any potential problems here, especially on the technical side, that the politicians may exploit?
Well, yeah. Well, when it comes to electronic voting, I never hide my opinion about it, because here's the deal. Let's use Bayelsa and Kogi State as an example, because we just had elections there, right?
Okay.
So we saw all the violence in the elections in Bayelsa and Kogi. We saw all the reports of vote buying, right? So you use money to buy votes, right? Even the violence, the ballots, the thugs, you use money to hire the thugs, right? So that means we have people with a lot of money who are ready to use that money to rig elections.
Okay.
Now you give them the option of electronic voting. With electronic voting, what happens is I go into my polling booth, I vote, and my vote is now in a computer, and it is hidden from everybody. When it is time to count the votes, unlike today where you bring out paper and everybody can see the paper and can count the paper, yes, this one is for ABC, this one is for XYZ. With electronic voting, the vote is hidden inside the computer. If you press a button and the computer now tells you what the vote was. So imagine if those people with all that money were able to take that money and give it to the IT officer inside INEC and tell him, put this program inside the computer, so that no matter what anybody votes votes for, when the result is asked for, the computer will say, I won.
I see.
And yes, and this is not a scenario that Chifande Oboh just came up with in his head. It's something that we have seen happening in other countries that use electronic voting.
Okay.
We saw it happen in 2002 and 2004 in America, in the United States of all countries, with the so-called Diebold machines.
Okay.
We've seen it happen repeatedly in India in the last 3 elections. So, and these are countries with more robust, because the difference is that in those countries it was detected later on, and it was looked into, it was probed, and people were prosecuted. But we all know how Nigeria is. People will get away with it, and it will not be caught the way it has been caught in India or in the USA.
So what would you recommend?
I personally recommend that you keep the manual voting.
Okay.
Keep the manual voting. Even if you want to use electronic voting, you have what you call electronic voting with an audit trail, with a paper audit.
Okay.
So that when I go and I press the button to vote for you, Sandra, as president of Hardfire.
Mm-hmm.
And when I press, instead of the votes just being stored in a computer, the computer gives me a paper printout. And I look at the paper printout, and I confirm that, yes, it is Sandra that I voted for, and I put the paper printout inside the ballot box.
I see.
Then later on, we use the computer's results to determine whether Sandra won the election or whether Chukwudi won the election.
I can simply send my boys to snatch the ballot box to ensure that the computer results that say Sandra won the elections is the only result you have.
And then if the ballot box is snatched, and now that comes back to a regulatory problem with INEC.
Okay.
Why should INEC announce any result where a ballot box was snatched?
Okay, we're going to have this conversation in detail perhaps next week, and we'll look properly at this bill. Chief Oboh, thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I have to ask you if you think electronic voting will work. And do you think it's a solution to our election problems? You know, what do you think about electronic transmission and electronic collation? These are the issues. These are the questions. Now, it's not a matter for you to call me on because we don't have the time to get into it, but it's something for you to think about and perhaps share with me on Facebook. Our Facebook is Nigeria Info 99.3. Nigeria Info 99.3. Twitter is also there. You can tweet at us at Nigeria Info FM. And if you want to see that video and pictures of Ene, the young woman we found at Aja, who trended on social media, and people were telling all kinds of lies that it was Yahoo boys. There were no Yahoo boys. This is why they want to bring out fake news legislation. So you can hear the full story, read the full story on my Twitter, Ezekwesili. Coming up, Community U Report.
99.3 Nigeria Info.